Yeah, the heart set, it's really interesting. And what I liked about it was the way that you talk about, we all have this accumulation of trauma, oftentimes from when we're younger. How do you help people process through that? Like how you've worked with some really high performers. How have you helped them tap into that? And then more importantly, how do you help them process through that? Is it about reframing the event? What does that look like?
Journaling is profound. Do you journal?
I have journaled. To say that I do journal would be a lie.
You're gonna love journaling. Like I do it almost every day. I had a show this morning, and then I had to set my intentions for you and all your global followers or viewers. And so I went back to my hotel room. I took a cold shower. I've been fasting a lot, so we can get into fasting because I fasted as I wrote the
Nice.
5M Club, and that helped massively. And then I pulled out my journal and I sat on my terrace and I literally started writing about my intentions for impact theory. And so how do you move through pain? You journal. If you're going through heartbreak, I mean, we've all experienced heartbreak. What we do is often we repress it because we're not given the tools to process through it. You lose a business, people repress it. Someone has a divorce or an illness. Oh, mindset, reframe it, psychology. You're swallowing pain, you're swallowing sadness, you're swallowing anger. We're built to feel, right? So writing in a journal, just getting it out. There's actually something in the 5M Club called the journaling deconstruction, because it's not just processing through pain. But to answer your question, that trauma of heart set, you write in a journal, you get it out of your system. Guess what? You don't bring passive aggressive into the workplace. You don't bring sadness or low vibe into the workplace. You're full of your true self in terms of your heart set, which is gratitude, love, appreciation. You know what that does for a business? You know what that does for a human life? So if you're going through a painful time, write that out. Almost every day I write gratitude, but I love great restaurants. And so I'll take the business card, and the next morning I pull out my little glue stick and I glue the business card into my journal, and I relive the experience. Oh, I had dinner with so-and-so. Here's what I learned. I deconstruct it with better awareness. We'll make better choices, better daily choices, better daily results. Imagine journaling like this every single day. You're going to have such acute awareness about when you're at your best, what the great ones do, how to live a life, what you want to stand for, what your core values are. You walk out in the world and you're just radiating possibility in a world where people are addicted to distraction and numbed out.
You've brought up distraction before, and I know you talk a lot about it in the book. How do we, in this world where algorithms are literally being constructed to make sure that they get our attention with as much frequency as possible, how do you talk to people about eliminating that? How do you do it in your own life? How do you create that space? How much time do you allocate to that real isolation?
Yeah, the brain tattoo in the book is an addiction to distraction is the death of your creative production. People's phones are costing them their fortune. So how do I do it? One of the rituals in the book is the tight bubble of total focus. It's based on Edison's Menlo Park. There's a great documentary on what he did, but essentially him and his band of co-geniuses would leave the world, go up to this hill to Menlo Park, where they could get into flow state. To give credit where it's due, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi of University of Chicago came up with that term, flow, when we're at our absolute best doing magical things in our performance. But that only comes when we get away from the world. So you can play with your phone, or you can be monomaniacally focused on being a history maker and legendary. You don't get to do both. And so building periods of time in that tight bubble of total focus where you leave your phone in another room, where you train your team, or if you don't have a team, you just don't have any distractions. And you ask yourself, what is the one thing I could do that would allow me to go out in the world and bring my magic to the world? The human brain has a phenomenon called transient hypofrontality. The neocortex, as you know, it's the seat of thinking. It's our monkey mind. It's all the chattering. It's the stuff that says, Tom, you can't do it. Robin, you can't do it. What would they think? What if I fail? What if I get laughed at? That's all the neocortex. It's the crown jewel of brain development. Not our primitive brain, crown jewel. But there's no genius in there. Now here's what I mean. When we get away from distraction and we find our Menlo Park, or we go work in a quiet place and we get lost, the neocortex actually shuts down. That's why it's called transient hypofrontality. For a short period of time, our thinking shuts down. The whole model is in the book. And we actually go from brain waves at beta down to alpha, down to theta, and maybe even delta. And we stop thinking and we go into flow. In other words, the advanced minds of the world, the great geniuses, Galileo, Da Vinci, Steve Jobs, they weren't in the neocortex. They got away from the world for bursts of time, which allowed them to access the human capability we all have to get into flow state and access insights that they went out in the world and then executed on with a world-class team, which totally changed the game.
It's interesting. Talk to me about impatience. So this is something that I bump against a lot of people on. I'm not a patient person. I don't invest in patience. I don't think it's useful. Doesn't mean that I don't play the long game. It doesn't mean that I do things that are dishonest just to get ahead or because it would be faster. I wouldn't. But I definitely cultivate impatience. What are your thoughts around patience, and what do you mean by being impatient?
I'm ridiculously impatient around my mighty mission. I'm ridiculously impatient, Tom, about serving people and bringing value to people. I am very patient with my children. I'm very patient with my team. You got to love the people around you. I'm very patient with the barista in a coffee shop who maybe is overwhelmed, or it's her first or his first day on the job. I'm very patient with the taxi driver who maybe gets lost. But that's how they're making their livelihood. So with human beings, I've worked very hard, and I'm a work in progress, but I'm very patient with human beings.